It was late afternoon when I wandered off from the campsite. My friends were setting up the fire while I followed a faint deer trail through thick pines. That's when I saw it. A dark hollow in the side of a cliff, almost hidden behind twisted roots and moss. I should have walked away. I should have ignored it. But the air around the opening was different, cooler. It felt alive. I stepped inside. Darkness swallowed me instantly. My flashlight barely cut through the gloom. The walls were damp, slick with some unknown residue, and the ground was uneven. Every step made a hollow clack, echoing back in a dozen tiny voices. At first I thought it was just my imagination. But then I heard whispers. Faint at first, almost polite. Then insistent. Calm. Closer. My heart jumped. I spun, flashlight searching, but the cave stretched endlessly in every direction. I realized then I had no idea which way was out. I kept moving, drawn deeper by some force I couldn't name. The whispers grew louder, echoing off the walls in patterns that made no sense. Shapes flickered in my peripheral vision, shadows that darted just beyond the reach of my light. A sudden sound made me freeze. A dripping, not water, something else. Slow, heavy, like footsteps behind me. My stomach knotted. I spun around. Nothing. I ran. The cave seemed to stretch, grow taller, wider. Walls that had been close now towered over me, slick and blacked. The whispers became voices. Not just voices. Mocking, urgent, pleading. Don't leave. I stumbled into a chamber. My flashlight revealed the walls were covered in carvings. Faces. Hundreds of faces, twisted in pain, fear. And then I saw my own face staring back at me, frozen in stone. I screamed. My flashlight fell, rolling across the ground. When I picked it up, the carvings were gone. Nothing but smooth stone. But the whispering didn't stop. It had followed me. Close now, almost breathing against my neck. I just ran, not daring to look back until I burst into the moonlight. The forest was quiet. The cave was gone. Just a wall of rock where the entrance had been. I wasn't planning to explore anything. I just wanted firewood. That's what I told myself as I walked away from the campsite and into the thinning light of late evening. The trees around our clearing were dense, but the forest beyond opened into rocky terrain. That's where I found the cave. It wasn't obvious at first, just a crack in a cliffside, half covered by a recent rockfall. A cold draft pushed through the stones. Steady and unnaturally cold, like winter air trapped underground. I moved a few rocks aside and felt the temperature drop sharply. Against my better judgment, I crouched and climbed inside. The cave's ceiling was low at first. I had to crawl. The stone was smooth, too smooth, like water had worn it down for centuries. My flashlight made the surfaces gleam a pale, sickly white. I expected animals. Bats, maybe. But there was no sound. No skittering, no flapping, not even dripping water. The silence was so complete, it pressed on my ears like altitude sickness. Eventually, the passage widened enough for me to stand. That's when I noticed the footprints. Not mine. Deep impressions in the dust. Human-shaped, but too long, too narrow, with a stride that didn't make sense. Whatever left them walked with uneven steps, like something was dragging. I followed them before I could stop myself. The tunnel split into 3 paths. The footprints went down the middle, deeper into the dark. The cold grew sharper, stabbing at my skin. My breath hung in front of me like smoke. Then came a noise. Not a whisper, not a voice. A sound like stone grinding against stone. coming from deep inside the earth. My flashlight flickered. I slapped the side of it, and it steadied. I told myself to turn around, but my legs didn't listen. I moved forward, each step landing too loud in the crushing silence. The tunnel opened into a large chamber, round and tall. At the center was a mound of rubble, broken boulders, shattered rock. It looked like something had burst up from below. Then the mound shifted, just slightly. A few pebbles rolling down the side, like something inside had exhaled. My lungs locked. The grinding sound returned. Soft now, almost cautious. Something large moved beneath the pile, pushing against the rocks with slow, deliberate strength. The mound rose an inch. Then, another. A long, pale limb slid out from the rubble. Not an arm, not a leg. Something in between. Jointed in the wrong places. It bent with a slow, nauseating curve, then clawed at the ground with a scraping that rattled my teeth. I stepped back. The limb stopped. The entire chamber seemed to listen. A second limb slid out, longer, reaching blindly, searching. The mound trembled as more of the thing tried to free itself. I snapped out of the trance and ran. The ground shook behind me as rocks tumbled. The creature was dragging itself free. I could hear its limbs scraping the floor, faster now, hitting the stone in uneven, frantic beats. My flashlight beam whipped across the tunnel walls as I sprinted. The cold stabbed my lungs. My legs burned. The grinding sound grew louder, closer. I crawled through the low passage and burst out into the forest air, just as the sun slipped below the ridge. I didn't stop running until I saw the glow of the campfire. I never told my friends. I didn't sleep. When dawn came, I went back, just to prove to myself it wasn't real. The rockfall was there, but the hole was gone. Filled in, sealed tight, like the earth had closed itself during the night. But as I stood there, trying to steady my breathing, I felt it. A faint vibration under my feet. A slow, dragging movement, like something enormous was shifting beneath the ground. I left the forest that morning, and I am never, ever going back. In 2020, I went hiking with a friend in the remote hills of northern Madagascar. We'd been following a barely marked trail when we stumbled across a narrow opening in the side of a cliff, a small cave, partially hidden by vines. Curious, we decided to explore it. Inside, the air was damp and smelled faintly of something metallic. The walls were smooth, almost polished, and strange symbols were scratched into the stone. We went deeper, our flashlight barely illuminating the passage. Then we noticed something unusual. Shallow depressions in the ground, arranged in a rough circle, as if someone had been sitting there for a long time. Suddenly, we heard the faint scraping of stone behind us. Nothing moved in the shadows, but the sound repeated slowly, deliberately, as if something was tracing the walls with long nails. We didn't wait to find out what it was. Heart racing, we turned and ran straight out of the cave. Once outside, the jungle felt impossibly quiet. The entrance we'd found so easily seemed almost to have disappeared behind the vines. Even now, I can't explain what we heard in that cave.